Welcome to Become a Laron Anthony. I'm your host, Laron Anthony, and this is my life. Becoming Laron Anthony is a podcast to help others through my shared experiences. This is not an attack for those who share these experiences through the episode topics. Parental advisory is strongly suggested. Hey y'all, welcome to episode 3, Becoming Healthier in Mental Health. In tonight's episode, we'll be talking about my mental health journey and the experiences that I dealt with and still dealing with when it comes to my mental health journey. My mental health journey started during the pandemic, but this was around the time when we were slowly starting to go back to our normal while we were trying to embrace our new normal. Like everyone else, I too felt isolated, which was not a good feeling to feel, especially for me being a young adult. Just like any average young adult, I'm used to going out, and since that was taken away from me, I had to be cooped up in the house. Now, I will be honest, I am a homebody. I love being in the house. The house is my comfort place. But during that time, I couldn't stand being in the house. I actually hated being in the house. To be honest, home didn't feel like home to me. It felt like a prison. While being stuck in the house, I felt like I was in a dark place. My mental state wasn't in the right place. I felt like a prisoner in my own mind. I felt trapped and stuck. Mentally, I felt like I was in a time loop, constantly toying and playing around my deepest and darkest feelings, thoughts, etc. I didn't feel safe in my own mind. I felt like I was being tormented in my own mind, which I felt like I was going crazy. I felt insane. I wasn't even at the surface, y'all. I felt like I was drowning in deep waters. At the time, I was depressed. I was drowning in my depression. I kept masking or hiding my pain and even masking my true self. Meaning I kept putting on different masks to cover up how I'm actually feeling. If someone was to ask me if I'm okay, I would have lied and said, yeah, even though I wasn't. At the time, I had the mentality that no one needs to know how I'm truly feeling but me. Of course, I was going to counseling, but even then, I had my moments where I didn't felt like sharing. I didn't felt mentally there. Or I just felt like I had to pretend to be okay, even though I wasn't. And I honestly couldn't bring myself to share my inner darker thoughts and feelings to my therapist. Eventually I did, but then there was so much that I was unable to share with her because I didn't want to be looked at differently. And I thought that my mental health can easily be manageable and that I could be able to handle it, but I couldn't. And y'all, I also felt prideful as well. I felt like I had to take on the world by myself and that I can handle the world on my own without any help. And to add on to that, I also felt like I needed to have my walls up so I couldn't let anyone in. And doing that, I created a toxic cycle for myself. At the time, I would wallow in my pity. I would constantly be miserable, as we all know that misery loves company. But unfortunately, I was my own company. And to be honest with y'all, I was a bad influence to myself. And the thing that tripped me up is that I kept listening to those inner voices that was in my head. As I stated, that I didn't felt safe in my own mind because I kept listening to those inner voices that was in my head that kept on telling me lies that weren't true. And unfortunately, I fell deep into the voices that was in my head. Just to clarify what I mean when I said I kept listening to those inner voices, what I mean by that is that I felt like I was experiencing so much mentally that I felt like I created a manifestation of some sort, which possibly created those inner voices. That's just what I thought. I mean, I experienced so much trauma that I felt like it was bound for me to create some sort of manifestation. But anyway, what I would constantly hear in my head is that you're never measured to anything, you're not worthy, no one cares that you're in pain, there's something wrong with you, etc. And of course, my emotions didn't help. They just responded to whatever I was thinking. I don't think I ever realized how powerful the mind and the emotions is. But what I come to realize that if I'm not careful when it comes to being in control of my emotions and my mind, then they will control my life. For a while, it was hard to get my mental and emotions under control. I used to hate the word control with a passion, but that's because I didn't understand the word control, and I hated the definition behind the word control. The reason why I hated that word control, well, sometimes I still do, but anywho, the reason why I hated it because of me being a black man. And I'm not trying to make it seem like everything and even in the little things should be considered as a race thing. But for me, I felt like it did because of how we've been conditioned at an early age to withhold back from anything that would describe us as being the loud and angry Black person. There's a lot of stereotypes and bad connotations that has been put on or even labeled or associated to us as Black people, both Black women and Black men. And for me, I was looking at the word control as if it was connected to me being a Black person, me being a Black man. And I felt as if I couldn't break down and that I had to have my walls up and just become emotionless. Basically, I had to pretend that I'm okay, even when I wasn't. I felt like I had to be made of steel. Basically, I felt like I had to be Superman. I mean, I was probably looking at it too deeply, but that's what I interpreted until I was told by my therapist at the time to reframe it in a different way. And to be honest with y'all, I don't even remember word for word verbatim, but what I do remember her telling me is that instead of looking at it as it being control, look at it as learning how to manage your feelings. And when she told me to reframe it, I'm telling y'all, it didn't last that long. I tried to reframe it that way, but I end up still thinking in that mindset that it's control and not manage. I felt like it was fight or flight for me because I tried to get my mind to see that it's okay to manage my feelings. But when you manage your feelings, you're not allowing your feelings to dictate what you do or even who you are because your feelings are only temporary. It's not permanent. And once you do something, it's hard to take it back. And for me, I was constantly making decisions based upon how I was feeling. Excuse me. And most of the time, it wasn't the right decision because I wasn't in the right place to make decisions because I just wasn't in the right place emotionally. Case in point, I know I said that I was cooped up in the house because of COVID and how it definitely messed me up just like it did for everyone else. But specifically for me, I just felt complacent, meaning that I felt like everything just stopped moving and I was just in one spot and didn't have a clue on how I got there. I felt as if my life was over and there was nothing that I could do about it. I basically felt like that was out of my control. And I'm used to taking on things that are in my control and what's out of my control. And that's definitely was a curveball for me. Even more so of me losing my uncle, Pastor LaShawn Brown Sr. When he died, I felt like a part of me died with him. I definitely felt lost. I didn't feel like myself. Hell, I didn't know who I was, to be honest with you guys. For those that know, and even for those that don't know, I was really close with my uncle. He was so much more to me than just being my uncle. He was my mentor, my confidant, and my second father. He was someone that I confided in and trust wholeheartedly. But on top of that, he knew me. We had a bond like no other. So me losing him, it definitely messed me up mentally. When he died, I couldn't sleep. I had nights, maybe even weeks, that I couldn't sleep. Every time that I tried going to sleep, I closed my eyes, and all I could think about was him. I remember the day he died and getting that phone call early in the morning, and then rushing to the hospital. And I remember me, my mom, my grandma, and my auntie, all of us was in the car, driving to the hospital, and I just remember crying because I've already knew before they told us, because I had this gut feeling that something wasn't right. But yeah, every time I closed my eyes, I thought about him. And I even thought about the way he was laid up in bed, and just seeing his body like that was just heartbreaking to see, especially for someone that I deeply loved, admired, and truly cared about. You never want to see your loved ones like that, seeing them lifeless. It just wasn't good for me to see. It completely shattered me and turned my world upside down. Y'all, I didn't even feel like eating. I was just out of it. I completely checked out. My mental health was completely at the breaking point. I honestly thought that I lost my mind. I mean, losing my uncle, that definitely wrecked me. And I felt like that drove me to the edge of no returning back. And on top of it, guys, I think I was starting my last year in college. So as I was getting ready to start my last year of college, that's when the next day he died. So it was really hard for me. But nevertheless, on top of it, y'all, I was struggling with my anxiety. I felt like I've been struggling with anxiety for a while. But I felt like at this time, it's just been building up. But everyone experiences anxiety differently and even experiences symptoms differently. That's just my opinion. But yeah, I feel like it gotten worse because of me losing my uncle. And to be honest, it was really hard for me to break down. I was struggling with my grief. I mean, no one really said that grief would be easy. Grief comes in all different ways and affects everyone differently. And grief is like a tidal wave of emotions. You can be up and then you can be down, which is somewhat is like life. But like I said, losing my uncle definitely wrecked me up mentally. But losing him made me realize how important it is to check in with yourself. But really, that it's okay not to be okay. And even if you're not okay, you don't have to be alone. And you're not alone. Just because we may think we're alone and feel like we're alone, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are alone. See, that's the thing that I was saying earlier, that the mind and emotions are a powerful thing, especially if it's not treated in the right care. Again, if you don't cater it in the right way and learn how to manage it, then eventually it will control you if you aren't careful. Now, remember that I said losing my uncle messed me up mentally? Well, mentally, I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't accept the fact that he's no longer here. Sometimes I still can't fathom it. Y'all, it's been a year since he's been gone. And he recently had a birthday, which was on Monday. But nevertheless, most days are better than most. But at the time, it felt like I was having bad days than good days. But I guess that's just a part of grief. And again, it's a part of life. Losing him was so sudden that it was a painful process, an even more painful experience. It's truly unbearable. It's an indescribable feeling that it seemed like it's extremely hard to find the words to describe it. But y'all, I was having a hard time communicating and expressing my emotions. I couldn't even break down. And even when I did, it was hard to let it all out because I was too afraid to be seen as an emotional wreck. Even though that's how I felt, because when grieving, again, it's like a tidal wave. A tidal wave of emotions was just hitting me all at once, and I didn't know how to respond to them. So I just did what I thought I knew best, which was suppress it and never to feel it again. But eventually, I had to. And the only way to do that is that I had to settle in and feel them. And even if I'm experiencing all of them at once, I have to feel them. Now, I did say earlier that I attended counseling, and even in the beginning, it was hard at first, especially when I lost my uncle. I wasn't even ready to go back to counseling after losing him because I wanted to grieve in my own way. But I felt like doing that, I would have did something that I would have regret. Because sometimes I feel like when you grieve, when you're grieving, you're not in the right mindset. And you can get lost in grief if you're not careful. But nevertheless, my therapist at the time told me to feel it and don't be scared to feel them. I had to own my pain. Even though it's unbearable, I had to feel it so that I could be able to heal. Healing is a part of the grieving process, even though it can be uncomfortable at times, but I had to feel it in order to learn from it. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Same thing goes for the mind. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now that I have my mental health under control, I journal. I try to write in my gratitude journal. I say affirmations towards myself, and I vent to my loved ones, and I try to create a positive outlet for myself just to keep myself busy and proactive. I come to find if I'm proactive, then I'm able to feel good mentally, and it does something good to my spirit. Now, I don't know what works for you guys, and I can't tell you what works best for you because each and every person is made differently. And everyone react differently and do things differently that best fits for them. So I think whatever works best for you and does right for you, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, etc., then do it. This concludes the episode in becoming healthier in mental health. If you or anyone you know may be struggling with their mental health, here's the hotline number, which is area code 866-903-3783. And please know that you are not alone, and there are plenty of resources to get you or someone you know the help that you need, and know that you are loved and are worthy of love, and you are enough. In the next episode, Becoming Greater Than Suicide, I will be discussing my experience with dealing with suicide and how I overcome attempting to end my life. But until then, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this podcast. I'm your host, Laron Anthony, and this is Becoming Laron Anthony.